Hey, good morning. I'm going to do a comedy. I'm going to start entering my comedy ideas. Yesterday I was carrying the mail. I had this great idea. It even made, well, yeah, I can laugh at my own jokes, even if other people won't. But it's going to be kind of like if I have actors, right, and I create a scene of this, and it's acted well, it'll be funnier than verbally saying it. Okay, so I'm carrying mail, and the guy comes up to me and asks me for directions, and I give him 3200 Nickel Street. So he's like, okay. He goes to 3200 Nickel Street, goes into the room here, and this lady's crying. Um, she's crying her eyes out, and talking about how her father died. And the last thing that she told him was, "I hope you fucking die. I hate you, Dad." And she didn't mean it, because they get into arguments, and she loves her dad. She doesn't want him to die. It's just a heat of the moment statement, and now she's feeling guilty, because he got into an accident and died, literally like an hour after her saying that, so she's crying and feeling guilty for having those last words spoke to her father, she's crying, and she finishes, she's like, "Oh yeah, thank you for letting me share, and here, we're gonna call this guy Nick." He claps and he's like, "Yeah, awesome, man. Great work." He's clapping enthusiastically, like, "It's awesome." And everyone's like, "What the fuck, man?" Startled. Like, what the fuck's going on? And he's like, "Oh, this isn't the acting class?" They're like, "No, this is a bereavement support group. What the hell?" And then, boom, switching to another scene, I come into play, and I'm like, remember, it's always important to give the correct address when giving instructions, because if you might think it's a minor offense, but it has serious consequences. You see, what the mailman did was he gave the wrong street. He gave the right address number, the right town. He just got the wrong street. He went to Nichols when it was supposed to be Walter Street, 3200. And so therefore, he was thinking that he was in an acting class when he actually ended up in a bereavement support group. And so, yeah, he's walking home feeling guilty as fuck, man. He's feeling like shit. And he's like, "Dude," and he just happens to be walking over a bridge, and he fucking leaps off and lands on the tracks and dies. And so the postal tutorial video lets people know, it's like, see, dire consequences. This postal man gave the wrong address, leading to the death of this guy. And then at the end of the clip, you'll see the mailman in an orange jumpsuit in prison. That's the scene right there. That's my comical scene. Of course, it's a joke. You have to have some extreme in a joke, and there's different layers. I mean, he was being supportive. He wasn't making fun of the lady. It was just, he thought he was being supportive of an act, but she was acting her role, that she made up in drama. That happens to be, he was supportive in a different context from a different. So that was my little scene that I envisioned. Walking route yesterday, thinking about that, and the tricky part of it, I think, would be having good actors, though, that could sell that. Like someone that can cry and really sell that she's really sad, and selling the point of, I think, like having an argument before the accident kind of helps sell that idea, I think, and just the oddity, right, of like just imagine, someone's in a bereavement support group sharing their heart and crying, and someone afterwards just like is enthusiastically clapping and, saying, great work, man. Not only that, just imagine if someone thought that she was lying. And now in this comedy section, he's not thinking she's a liar. He's thinking that, she's come up with this role, and that's what's going to be in her, her play, and that she needs to act that out. And yeah, so that was my humor for the day. And then there was another one I came up with of, guy gets into an accident and no one's around. He bumps into the car. So he leaves a note saying everything that happened. And then he signs a different person's name. Then he's like, what? It's a half-truth. And then he goes further down the rabbit hole and he says, no, it's actually a 90% truth. Because I went through all the effort of writing a note saying everything that happened, and the very small detail was signing the name. So it's more than half a truth. It's like 90% truth. The only thing that's the lie is the name that you put on the note. That's his rationale behind the lying. And, it's kind of a joke. Would not be a joke if it was serious. But it would be funny if I actually made a video teaching people to do that and actually be joking, but yet not say that I'm joking and actually try to come across as serious. Just to see, I imagine you could probably get a lot of views from that. That's where I could get views, right? The hate views from that. People would be like, it'd be funny, because I'm not being serious, but I don't have that kind of comical courage, I guess. Don't pull off a joke like that, because people can't take a joke. So yeah, that's some of my ideas have been cooking up in my brain. I've been meaning to write some stuff, actually. So yeah, I do when I carry the mail often, as I'm thinking. So I thought that was a good one. Probably other people don't, but I made one person laugh. But when yesterday I talked about it to one person, but I didn't refine it good enough. So I can see where you come up with something that's funny. You remember it, you write it down, but then you think about it again. You can fill in the details of the joke and then make it better. Like the detail of, oh, she's not only crying. Well, and what about her crying that you can sell? Oh, well, she had an argument with her dad, and then he died in an accident. And of course, naturally, if you get into an argument with somebody, you say some shit you don't mean, or some hurtful shit, and then he dies or she dies, you're going to feel bad. So that sells that. That's common sense. Yeah, you're going to be sold into that. And then you bring the total inappropriate wrong emotion, like fucking, yeah, man, good work, man, clapping the hand enthusiastically. Right after that, you're going to be like, that's the pinnacle of what makes that fucking hilarious. And then linking that to the mailman given the wrong street, but the right number. That landed him into this situation. You know what I mean? That's why I'm kind of proud of myself over making this joke, because it actually, in my mind, it works. It works. So that was a good. I was caught in the rain, working in the rain, and I came up with a good joke, I guess. I don't know. We'll find out. But I hope you guys have a good day. Yeah, I'm gonna stop thinking about that crap. Petty shit. I mean, 16.2 in the JCAM does say that you're supposed to have a serious discussion to give proper time for the person to adjust his behavior. So, yeah, it kind of was frustrating that I went right to a written warning. Skipping that. It's in the JCAM. Now, a JCAM is an interpretation of the contract between the union and the post office that's acceptable between two parties. It's not, I mean, if it's not in the JCAM, you could still win, I believe, because it's an interpretation of that huge contract. You basically have to be like a lawyer to understand. I guess there's a lot in it, and the language, I guess, leads to the birth of the JCAM, which is used pretty much for arbitrators to, decide their grievances and whatever when it comes to disputes. So it's pretty much the rule book. And it supersedes the MD-41, which is the rule book for carriers. So when it does specifically state in 16.2 of the JCAM that if it is a minor offense, you're to naturally have a serious discussion. You can have notations and whatnot, but it's not to go into the personnel file folder of the employee. Then it goes to discipline. So that kind of created a little bit of frustration with me, is because the union steward should know this and should have stated this, and they didn't. Both of them. One went on vacation, so then the other one was there, and neither of them talked about that, obviously, because we went right to the PDI, which is a disciplinary investigation. I don't know. The P is postal discipline. It's the discussion leading up to the decision if you're going to go forth with discipline. And pretty much every time there's a PDI, it goes to discipline, I think. I don't know how many times you have a PDI and then it doesn't. That's the funny thing. So then they write the warning, and then it gets grieved, and then they decide. By default, it's 2 years. Then they try to talk it down. They gave me 5 months, which is stupid. 90 days max. Actually, I should have had the verbal discussion, so it shouldn't have went to that. And then, of course, what I was really beefing about was the language used, So my frustration really is, the steward should know the JCAM and understand what the JCAM states and make their arguments based on the JCAM, so they can better defend the people that get into trouble. Because not all trouble's like really serious. Not all trouble is someone intentionally trying to be a douchebag. Your dog spray falls out and you're in trouble. And you could get 2 years with your personal folder being dirtied up with that. And then you don't have progressive discipline if you're not full-time. So if you get in trouble again within that period, then they can separate you, which is the post office's fancy way of saying the same thing by using different language. Oh, you're not being fired, you're being separated. Well, the end result is you lose your job. It's the same thing. And yeah, it's a petty job. with pettiness. And that's the reason why I'm not 100% pro-union, but you need a union in a petty environment like that to try to protect people, because not all management's the same, not all supervisors are the same, but there are a lot of people that love disciplining people. It's just the kind of mentality some of these postal managers who seem to just love giving discipline. It's just, I don't know, man. It's a freaking illness of the brain, in my opinion, but I've seen it. It's like wannabe cops, they love going out and observing people and freaking catching people doing things or whatever, and then handing out discipline. It's like they get a bonus check for it or something. But it is what it is. That's why, at the end of the day, the union is, if you have stewards who are honestly knowledgeable and know what they need to know, they can keep people out of trouble. Now, if they don't, then it's just a bad system, because you need a steward that knows what they're doing and knows the JCAM and understands what's in it and can defend you. Now, that's the thing. I find out that one of the stewards used to be a supervisor. And there was another supervisor that used to be a steward. So there's a lot of, weirdness around that. I think it's a conflict of interest, to be honest with you. I don't think you should allow a steward to be a steward if they were a supervisor. And if a steward becomes a supervisor, they should not be able to supervise the area that they've worked, because that's a conflict. My last office, a steward came in and interviewed everybody because they were, I guess, beefing about the supervisor. She wasn't she was just all about the rules. She wasn't really a bad supervisor, to be honest with you, just anal, young, and, a lot of old regulars didn't like her because she would micromanage them, and she's like really, really super young, and they've been at it for 30 years, and she's telling them, stuff that's in the rule book. So it's not like she was making it up. She's just like, follow the rules, petty rules. So everybody bitched. I didn't participate in it. I just basically, when I didn't have a choice, I just said, she just is following the rules to the T, dude. That's all. So yeah, he became the supervisor of that very office, which was, to me, kind of weird, because you had a lot of employees that beefed about the supervisor to him as a steward, and now he's their supervisor. That's weird. You know what I mean? At least, yeah, that's a strange thing. Which leads to the issue of not only knowledge of stewards, but being soft towards management. Because if the management knows that, hey, these stewards aren't going to really question these things, they're going to do what they want to do. Like, they want to give discipline. And you're like, yeah, these stewards aren't going to make the official discussion happen. Then the steward becomes kind of a part of the problem, because now the management knows that maybe the stewards don't know the JCAM all that well. And they'll do whatever they want to do, you know what I mean? And they're going to be able to, because the stewards really only know, stupid stuff, like, don't touch the mail before the clock. They'll grieve that kind of stuff. That's basic stuff, but they don't really know, stuff, that they should. They know, basics. You got to know more. And it sometimes seems that the stewards are a little bit more pro-management than they should be. So I don't know, man. That's where what was going through my mind, and it was really starting to piss me off, really, because I'm thinking about the ethics of that. And then it leads my mind into the rabbit hole where I'm like, okay, I'm coming around the deadline at 7 o'clock. I've done a lot of work. I do a lot of work, and oh, they're mad because of that. Well, it's travel time. I'm getting done before 7, but it takes 20 minutes to get to the place. You know, the city is big, and there's a lot of traffic, so it takes a while. You lose a lot of time driving around. Oddly enough, it's a pretty spread out city. So, yeah, I'm thinking, well, geez, that's what they're doing, is they're trying to make me pay a price for freaking coming in a little late. And so therefore, they probably noticed I didn't have my dog spray when I left the office. And instead of telling me, they waited for me to get on the route and decided to come out and catch me doing that. So I'm like, yeah, that's probably the truth, man. That's what the fuck they did, dude. And then now they have me by the balls on that warning, and then they freaking know that the stewards aren't really going to force them to give a verbal discussion, so now they can put me on freaking blast for 5 months, and then maybe 4 months down the road come out and catch me doing something else, you know what I mean? So yeah, that the rabbit hole that, you know, starts to get my wheels turning, and then I start freaking, yeah, but what can you do? You know, at the end of the day, I do the job because I make myself happy, pretty much. I'm not doing it for them, pretty much, so. Yeah. Not the end of the world. Who knows? I do appreciate you guys watching, and thank you.